Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of Average Superstar TV. I'm your host, Lauren Lepre. Please give me that honor and smash that subscribe button on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. We have a new episode every Monday morning at 5:30 a.m. And this week, we're back in the film world. We're going to be jumping into special effects department. Our guest this week has been an effects artist in movies we all know, such as Tremors, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Blob, Society, Dead Heat, and Night of the Demons. Yes, horror fans, this is the real deal. This guy's been in some of our classics here. So with that, I'd like to welcome to the show, Nick Benson.
How you doing?
Doing good, friend. Thank you so much for coming on this show. We share a lot of common friends, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, friend, I guess right out of the gate, when did you know you wanted to be involved with movies, and was special effects like your main focus, or did you just kind of end up landing there?
It's an interesting story. It's kind of both. Initially, like, it goes further back than just wanting to do it for a living. I've been a monster kid pretty much my whole life. I think it all got started when I was about 10. My mom was an executive at Universal. I got introduced to the Universal monsters pretty early on. My ex-stepfather was an editor in the business, so he edited a bunch of stuff like Jaws 3 was one of the things. I was on set for Jaws 3 at like 11 or 12.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of been in my family, forever. So I've been around it my whole life.
Were you around when they were doing the special effects for the greatest scene in history with Jaws 3 with the main crash through?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you know it's okay to laugh, but I actually remember being in the theater, and when that happened, no one jumped. Everybody laughed.
My biggest thing was when we pre-screened it, it was like, when did sharks start roaring? Right.
Yep.
I didn't know sharks could do that. Anyway, so yeah, it started pretty early on in my blood, and I just became a big horror fanatic. There was even stuff at 10, 11 years old my mom didn't want me watching, and I'd either sneak out and watch it, or go with friends or whatever. And I was getting monster magazines as a kid, all that stuff. And
I credit your mom for watching out for you, though, because I've said time and time again on my shows, like, my parents really kept an eye on me. It wasn't until about that age where they started letting their guard down a little bit. But I think it's kind of a good idea to kind of keep a kid, centered and gradually, bring stuff up. Like, I couldn't imagine seeing like The Exorcist being 5 years old. I would have never slept again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. No way.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Yeah.
So I as a teenager, like, I grew up into kind of my teens, and I started playing 12 and wanted to be a musician. And, I guess the two kind of go hand in hand, music and horror and all that stuff. They all go hand in hand. But, I started off wanting to be a musician and learned to play guitar and bass and drums. And I had to do all those things and experience all those things. And, at 17, I left home and wound up moving in. It kind of shortened this up a little bit. I wound up moving in with a guitarist that I had started playing with, and our other roommates were Steve Johnson and Kevin Brennan.
Okay.
So I had this desire to do some really theatrical stuff with our band, and was sort of kind of creating stuff with Sean on our stage show and what we were going to do and different things here and there, and wound up kind of talking those things over with Steve and with Kevin, and and wound up with an invite to Screaming Mad George's Monster Makers Ball, and I just kind of got around these guys and was like, this is really cool. And so, long story short, there was a point in time where I was asking Steve about some things that I wanted to do for the band. And Steve was like, well, why don't you just come make Rubber Monsters for me? So it's kind of hard to turn that down.
So at this time, were you already
so history? That's
yes, but at this time, did you already kind of go to a school, or you just kind of had a hand of?
No, I was all like hands on with playing with different things myself and figuring things out. And Steve kind of liked the stuff I was doing, so he just asked me, come over and work for me.
So you basically saying like you weren't at school yet, you were just kind of grabbing data from those Fangora magazines, maybe, and that. So you were hands on. You were just like from the ground up, grassroots.
Absolutely,
that's awesome. That's fantastic. So you did that for that video, and then I guess this slowly started.
So yeah, Steve basically asked me to come and work on Night of the Demons, and a lot of the guys at the shop kind of, I knew the basics of a lot of things, and they just kind of guided me and taught me the right ways to do things. And I was very lucky that I had the people that around me at Steve's shop were like Todd Masters and Mike. God, I can't think of his last name right now. Just all the right people that are huge now. Those are the guys that taught me the right stuff to do.
So I know I named a whole bunch, but they almost seem right now like 87, 88, 89. So you say Night of Demons, was that your first big jump forward, or was there a film before?
Absolutely. Yeah. Night of the Demons was my first big dive in.
For my sake, I'm probably like 10, 11, and like I got to see Night of the Demons. My parents won't let me rent it, but it did make like channel 11. And but it was edited, but like I didn't care, I didn't care. I was like, okay, this is marvelous. But that had to been it's weird. What was your reaction? Like, I made this and it's working, like it's spreading, everyone's renting this movie and everything. I mean, you had to be really proud of that, right? And then this chain react, is that how it all went?
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, when we did it, it was such a low budget film. We didn't really know that it would take like it did. We didn't know it would have the fan base that it got. We just thought, oh, this is just going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun making it. There's a lot of crazy kind of campy stuff that happens, but let's make it look as disgusting as possible. And that's really what Steve's vision was for it. And, after the fact, I thought maybe this thing wouldn't last 5 years, but holy shit, it's been 35 years or 35 years plus now, and it's still going strong with a fan base. So pretty impressive.
Yeah, dude, congratulations on that. And is that what led you into the Mighty Nightmare on Elm Street 4?
Yeah. I worked for Steve on, I think the first one was Night of the Demons. The second one was Dead Heat.
Oh gosh, with Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo, right?
Yeah, I think we went straight into Dead Heat from that. I want to say from that, like in the middle of that, we wound up starting Howling 4. So it was kind of like one after another.
Well, so for all that, you weren't really around like Joe Piscopo and Treat Williams. You were more of the yeah, were they all right? How were those two?
Well, let's put it this way: those guys were a lot of fun, and there was a lot of like ridiculousness that went on set with those guys. Jerry Lewis was like a big thing for whatever reason with Piscopo and Treat and Steve Johnson, and like there was constant Jerry Lewis impersonations.
That's awesome, and yeah, that was when I like those two. Piscopo was that's when he bulked up. He was all bulked up, and Treat Williams I always liked because I was always a fan of hair. That's awesome flick. So
yeah, and those guys had really good comedic timing together too, so it worked really well.
That's awesome, and
I feel like that's a really underrated film in my opinion because I thought it's a fucking great movie.
Oh, I love that ending, and I love that comment Episcopal. Like, they're dead. They're like, oh, I wish I want to be reincarnated as the seat of a girl's bike. I'm like, I'm like 11, 12 when that's happening. So your hormones are like, I'm saying that to everybody until I got slapped in the face. You're
Yeah, exactly.
then you stop. But that's also you were consistent right from there, because I mean, from the Blob to Halloween 4. I mean, wow. I mean, you were kind of like you were one of the elite. You had to have been, dude. There's no other reason you're being called other than that.
Well, I wouldn't say elite. It was a rather small group of people doing effects in those days, so everybody pretty much knew everybody, and we all ran to one another's shops when there's work here, work there. Everybody kind of went everywhere, and it worked. Almost family-like. The discord was there too with some people, but
that comes with the business. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was how nice we all are to each other.
I got to say though, I mean, I really couldn't have asked for a better bunch of people to be around in those days that guided me the right way, and to do things the way that I do them now. So I was very fortunate to be amongst those people and brought on to projects. Because of those people and working with those people, I got to move on to other things like the Blob and Tremors and and those.
That's all. So I'll give you a quick lore and history here of a defining moment in my life where when Freddy's Nightmares was going on, they were airing that once a week, and I grew up in Scranton, and they had this thing for children. Like it's funny, they're targeting the show for children, and it said, if you write down the title of the Freddy's Nightmares weekly episode and just send it to the TV station, there's a chance you could win some prizes. And being a kid, I'm like, I'll do it. And all I do is wrote it down and wrote my name underneath it, like it's child's penmanship. And I put my mother's return address on it. And I stole one of her stamps. And about 2 weeks later, I'm playing in a yard. My mom calls me over. And she has the serious face. I'm like, what did I do? I'm thinking. And then she just opens up this box and drops all this stuff. And she's like, explain. and it's Nightmare on Elm Street 4 on VHS.
Oh, that's awesome.
The poster, birthday invitations for my next party, which had Freddy on it. And there was a couple little, millennious things in there. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I won. And my mom's like, what did you do? So I explained it to her, but she doesn't really understand what I'm talking about. But I'm kind of like 11-ish. And she's just like, and I'm like, she's not going to let me have the video. She's not going to let me. She's just like, shoves it all back in the box. She's like, okay. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to let me watch this. So I've always had a big thing for part 4. I think it's like three. Everybody's like a 3 part, but I think 3 and 4 complement each other great. And the effects you guys had, I'm not just saying that because you're here, but I just thought the production value for 3 and 4 were just amazing. And then
absolutely.
And then 5 had that kind of a drop off a little bit, But dude, that's just amazing. That I got you here with all that. So I have to say thank you because you helped make that happen. And it was one of those things where by then I didn't call Freddy Krueger at all scary. Who did? He was kind of an awesome guy. Like you were rooting for him by then. The first one was like oh damn, I thought but that's when Freddy was like the ass kicking fun machine that you liked. And I love the cast with 3 and 4. I thought that's what I always said, like if the killer doesn't have someone you're rooting for, it could backfire on them, because I think a lot of horror movies these days, it's just like you don't even care about the characters. You're just looking for the kills.
Right.
And Nightmare on Elm Street 4, like I was stunned when Kincaid and Joey died like that fast. I was just like, after all that, wow, they're gone. I'm like, oh no. And then Christian goes next. It's like, wow. But to be replaced by a strong character like Alice too, I was like, wow, I'm okay with this. I like Dan and Alice,
Yeah, her arc is great. Her character arc is great in the movie.
By far. But I know like that director also went on to and then you go on to like Die Hard and everything. Like he did a lot of Yeah, yeah. So, they always say sometimes when you're directing horror movies, like you could be you could be flagged and be like typecast, and but that dude did such a good job, and you helped make that happen, man. So, I mean, that's
Well,
so
one of the
cool.
one of the things that's kind of cool about it is like I worked with Mick Strawn, who is the production designer on 3 and 4. Technically, 3 is the better film structurally, like, technically,
Yeah.
but 4 was the MTV Freddy. 4 was the MTV generation where,
I
it
thought
was
the production
it was
value was even higher for the fourth.
yeah, it was rock and roll Freddy. I mean, it was
Yeah.
definitely the peak in my opinion.
And
But,
I believe it was crazy because I think it was that and Friday 13th Part 7 where it came out like around the same time. And I think to this day, you might be able to tell me if I'm wrong, but I think Part 4 of Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday 13th Part 7 made the most money. Like
yeah, I
of
believe so.
of all of them. Yeah, yeah.
I believe that's very true.
Yeah.
Today is also Robert's birthday, by the way. I didn't know if you knew that.
I did not know that, but we'll say
Happy birthday, Robert.
Robert England. Yes. We just saw in Stranger Things.
Yeah, that was actually really cool.
Yeah, it was. It was cool to, it's unfortunate what his character had to do for nothing. If you really, it's not really his fault, but but yeah, it was cool. And who doesn't love Robert England? But how was so? Take us through that. So, what's it like? It's Nightmare on Elm Street 4. You're in Freddy Mania. You get called to that. What's the set like?
That was a big deal for me. I actually really hadn't, obviously, as you said, Nightmare was already a franchise that was very established. And for me to get a call to come work on it was pretty exciting for me. I was a big fan.
Yeah.
So it was really fun to go there. It was a really, really great set. Really, really a lot of hard work. The other thing that I'm not sure a lot of people know about Nightmare 4 is there was a writer strike during the filming of that. And that writer strike caused a lot of issues with rewrites. So believe it or not, the cast rewrote a lot of their own dialogue.
Oh,
so a lot of that was done by them. And even little technical things like in the diner where you see Freddy's shadow of his hand on the wall in the diner. That was actually, believe it or not, Lisa Wilcox was playing around in between in between shooting, playing around with the silverware, and wound up casting a shadow from the light on the wall from the silverware, going, "Oh my God, that looks like Freddy's hand." So she's like, "We have to do this." So that was all her. Yeah, that was all her.
I totally love it. So you were obviously a part of the, Evil Sees himself and It Shall Die, that whole tunnel with all the bodies hanging out and everything. Was that you helped construct?
No, that wasn't me. I worked on Freddy's death, which is the end that Steve Johnson was in charge
Okay,
of.
with all the hands.
Yeah, and then also worked for Screaming Mad George in Brooks' cockroach transformation.
Oh, yes, which is obviously unpleasant for a lot of people who don't like bugs. That's probably the kill everyone still talks about, yeah. So, I mean, how do you even start with that? I mean, how long is that even to be between shooting to getting it to the computers to take over? I mean, how long does that take?
Well, in those days, there weren't computers. It was just editing celluloid and doing the stuff all practically. So,
wow. Lot of days burned. I mean, back then, especially, like how many days was that shoot in full of Nightmare on Elm Street? About 2 months, maybe, with all those.
I don't remember because like I spent most of my time in the shops helping build the stuff, and then we'd go to set and shoot it. And I don't remember the shooting part of it. I don't remember taking more than a couple weeks at a time for each one. But I know that the shoot in its entirety was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months long, I think. I want to say.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and the breaking of of her arms and everything into the roach. I mean, man, that's a lot. That's a lot of work prepping for that, right?
Yeah, it really was. And I got to say, like I say this on almost all of these because everybody always winds up asking anyway, is, putting an actor through that is a lot for someone to sit through and have to deal with. But Brooke, I still am in awe of her because she had to be put into so much makeup and goop and shit, like take after take. And we had multiple of those arms that break We had multiples of those things, and we did multiple takes of those things. And she had no issue with getting right back in the makeup and doing it again and getting right back in the muck. She was a fireball, man. She had no issues.
That's great, and I'm imagining the room's hot with the lights and the temperature and everything. So, I mean, is the effects, things falling off of her, or do you guys kind of have it down? Yeah.
Well, we have it down. I mean, we do the best we can with the situations we're given, and you know how it is you can cheat a lot of things with camera angles. You can cheat a lot of things with different techniques, but overall, that's what it takes is multiple takes of things. And then obviously it gets in the edit room and it gets put together into something that makes sense.
Gotcha. So between this whole entire era you're talking between Nightmare on Elm Street and Tremors and all that stuff compared to nowadays, a lot of stuff they run through the computer, and a lot of people, we always kind of brawl back and forth of it was better back then, it was harder versus because I'm one of them people I rate it as a kind of an equal balance, but sometimes I'm looking at these effects and I'm just I don't like the CGI blood. I never think it looks good.
No.
Ever.
No, CGI blood really, I don't know why, but the organic stuff doesn't ever really translate well.
No.
But I will say that while there's that whole war of CGI versus practical, I don't think that there's really one versus the other. I think that it's just getting that complementary mix of what works well in practical versus what works well in digital. And there's a fine line there. Digital is a toolbox of tools to help make the practical stuff look even better.
Yeah, I think I totally got it down with blowing somebody up. I think when you say that today, you're just wow, that looks awesome. Even in '93 when Forrest Gump, when the attack happens, with the Vietnam people, it's you're just that explosion of those two. I'm for '93, that looks as real as it gets to me. I felt I was immediately brought in the war. I was wow, that's scary.
Yeah, and the digital removal of limbs and things like that. I mean, that stuff works really well without having to use too much practical stuff. All you're doing is putting a green sock on somebody, really.
Yeah, it's crazy. So how was the Blob remake at a classic, which is funny because the original theater is in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. So that's about 35-40 minutes from me, but they have Blob Fest down there now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've been going on for a while.
I've kind of toyed around with talking to those guys about coming out for that. I did something at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. That was the remake double take. I was out there for that.
I go up there a lot, and this year, trust me, between them bringing you out and stuff, they got someone there every weekend. Yeah, there's something going. I think Ginger Lynn's coming up soon they're going to do Vice Academy and a whole bunch of movies like those old USA Up All Nights. Yeah, right. Yeah. I have not been up there this year, and usually by now I'm up there at least 3 or 4 times. So
right. But, well, it's a great bunch of people that run that place. So
yeah, great.
That's always a good time for me when I go out there. Yeah, the last Freddy Fest I was there, and right before the Freddy Fest thing started, they did a screening of Night of the Demons, and I was there with Amelia Kincaid. Okay. And then the following night, Freddy Fest started. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's 2 separate. I think Toy was up there too, and they had Kincaid and Joe. I think it was weird. It was announced and it was a Tuesday, and I'm in Philly. I'm damn, I'm gonna have to take work, and it just one thing led to another, and it's one of those things I miss. But you can't hit everything. There's something going up there 3 or 4 days a week. Unless I just move up there and pinch a tent to the fall, But. Yeah, dude, that's awesome though. And the Blob was where was that filmed? They didn't film in the original location, right? They did.
Well, everything that I was involved in was shot in Simi Valley at a special effects company that I don't believe they exist anymore. But it was a huge soundstage company, and everything was shot there. All the miniatures, all the effect sequences, all that stuff.
That's great. And swinging back to the Freddy thing, you did all the hands come out of his head, right?
When the souls are coming out of his body, yeah. I was puppeteering the soul that's on his shoulder.
Okay.
So, I actually wound up. There was a little like a little armature wire that poked through one of the fingers on that and I was actually stabbing him in the neck, but he's screaming so nobody realizes that he's hurt. He wound up, well, Robert winds up screaming cut because he's getting stabbed.
Oh man.
And that was
so there was a whole was that you and a few other people, I imagine, right? Because there was a lot of armed.
Oh yeah, there was I think I want to say just under 10 puppeteers.
Wow.
On those things, because there's also two different parts of that. There's the part where you actually see Freddy attached, like stuck to the window.
Yeah.
He's stuck to the church window.
Yeah.
That's one part of it. And then there was the torso where you had Linnea and all the other souls like pushing out of his stomach. Like there was that part of it too, which was this huge, like 15-foot Freddy torso. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
That wound up falling over at one point, and there was a puppeteer that fell off of it. Luckily, she didn't get hurt.
Yeah, that is
too badly, but it was pretty scary.
Yeah. Well, something to make you laugh. They made I know they made T-shirts of that, like where it was a hand like coming out of his head, like this when they were selling Freddy merchandise.
Yeah.
And my parents wouldn't buy me the shirt. And at Ames at the time, it's a department store. I think it's gone up near my area. They were selling the shirt for $12. And I remember I was cutting grass and I was like, as soon as I get to the $12, I'm going to go buy that shirt behind my parents' back because I know they're not going to let me have it. Now, being a kid that's 11, 12, thinking you're smarter than your parents, I went and I bought it, wore it, threw it in the wash. Who does the wash? Your parents. So they came up, they're like, what is this? And I'm like, I told them what I did. And I'm just like, it was my money. I was like, I love Freddy, please. And it's like, you could have the videos. You can't have this shirt. And they took it from me. They took that shirt. Yeah. So make people laugh at home. But so right now, I know you got a couple projects going here, so feel free. We could talk about them. I know one of them's called Campfire.
Yeah. I had I've been trying to produce some horror. And actually it's thanks to the fans, because the fans that I meet at conventions, I've had great conversations with a lot of those people, and they all feel the same way I do, that horror had lost something. In fact, you brought it up earlier, that you don't seem to care about the characters anymore, that it's just about the kills.
Yep.
And I felt like horror really lost something there, so I decided to change it.
That's wonderful, man.
And Campfire is a project that was brought to me by a gentleman by the name of John Lohman, who is a good friend of mine. And it's an anthology, and he had been trying to get that film made for 10 years. CBS had picked it up at one point, and then they shelved it, and then it was optioned back to him. He brought it to me, and we're just pushing forward as hard as we can to get that movie made. There's also 2 series that spin off of that film. It's an anthology. There's I think 7 stories in total in the film, and then we kind of spin off of that with Campfire, as well as another like the wraparound story kind of goes off on its own too.
I think anthologies are great. I've always loved, like I ran my own short film fest called Liberty Massacre, and I always loved that. If someone's not liking the film, when ain't going to be long before, it switches to something else that you might be into and stuff. It's like I just always think short films are just I love them. It's just something I could watch for days. I could go on YouTube and just let them all go. It's smart. But backing up what you said about what I was saying about characters these days. This is like, again, the Elm Street children. You liked Freddy too, but you liked them. I always said, like, Jamie Lloyd in Halloween 4 and 5. Like, there's this little girl, I could get behind her. Like Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th, I could get behind it. I just literally think, man, it turned just so bad where it's like you don't care about these characters.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Where it's just like you're looking at the kills. What was a prime example was this last Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, who did you care at all for anybody? Really? Like, you didn't care about any of these people. I was like, I can't get behind any of them. I just felt it was like, written by someone far right that said, everyone has been annoying the last 3 years. I'm going to throw them in a bus and get torn up. That's all I saw. Yeah. Which, did kind of make me smile a little bit because I can't see everybody that's whining. But at the same time, it's just like, to make him stronger, they needed someone or some buddies to root for. And I'm like, I can't root for this Tegan and Sarah girl.
Right.
Like I just didn't care about them. I just didn't.
Right.
Yeah. So.
I hear you. It's interesting. And we're trying to make Campfire in the sort of, I don't want to say creep show, although creep show's awesome. It was a little campy. I think we're leaning towards more of that Twilight Zone feel. If you remember Twilight Zone, the movie,
right.
like Poltergeist, that kind of thing. That it's
funny when you say Poltergeist.
All the stories are and
yeah. But when you say Poltergeist, look at Julian Beck's character in Poltergeist 2. Like that. So you want to talk about an old creepy man? Like I still think that entrance, and all he's doing is walking, but like I get creeped out every time. He's like, God is in his holy. That voice.
Yeah, he scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah, I mean that's where is that these days? Because like I hope any film directors watching this right now or any script writers, like, please take note of that. Like the good guys, the heels. I'm sorry, the faces, like we'd say in wrestling. They've got to be strong. People need to root for them because it's only going to make the main guy like that much stronger at the end. Like you can't just be like, oh, there's horror movie characters you don't even get their names these days. It's just like they walk in the room and then there goes I'm like, I think writing goes. I think people are so focused on the kills that it overrides that these characters need arc. They need to grow.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So that was my goal, was to try to change that with the films I'm working on. And I was approached by, believe it or not, Mick Strawn, he's directing, a movie called House in the Pines.
Okay.
That's another one that's going to be coming soon. I think Showtown American picked that up. And that's going to be, I think, done in the next year. Campfire will be done in the next year. I'm just doing effects on House in the Pines, but I'm hoping that that's going to be something really worth seeing. And Campfire is definitely going to be something worth seeing. I don't know if you knew, but I had an accident last year that I came out of a studio ceiling and shattered my right foot. So effects wise, I'm just doing a lot of the design and like overseeing and hiring people to come in and do it. Kind of like the Steve Johnsons and the Stan Winstons and that kind of thing.
So that was like a movie set where you were in the ceiling and you came.
I have an office in a studio that has a couple of sound stages in it. And I happened to be up in the ceiling doing something and trying to get over a wall. And I lost the footing and the ladder. And could only hold on to the what was up there for so long. And I decided I needed to go down. So
I guess there was no one there to help you, huh?
Nope, there was nobody else there. I was there by myself. I shouldn't have been up there in the first place, but
hugs, friend. Sorry to hear that part. Yeah. And you also had another film you're currently working on called Phobia.
Yeah, I do. So that's kind of, that accident kind of pushed me into producing and directing and doing other projects. And I was on the road with Lynn Lowry for
great actress.
About a month. We were doing appearances together at conventions, and we did some screenings and stuff like that together. And we just, we really clicked. I really adore her. She's a sweet, sweet lady. She loves horror like nobody's business. And she and I had a conversation about doing this film, and I just threw it out there. I said, would you be opposed to me directing it? And she said, I would absolutely love if you directed it. So I will be directing Phobia. Phobia is we stripped the entire story back and started new, but it's based on David Durston's original script for I Drink Your Blood. Okay. And that is, if you know the movie, like by today's standards, it's kind of campy, but if you really take a look at it from a 1972 perspective, it was a shocking film with a statement, about racism, about, about all kinds of things. And I really leaned hard into that with the new story. I leaned hard into that because I figured we could do it two ways. We could either go really campy and make it really silly and fun, or we can lean really hardcore into it and go with the, like racial issues and homophobia, and like lean really hard into that stuff. So that's what I did with it. Was I told John that I wanted a story that would leave people walking out of the theater scratching their heads and not being able to process it for days.
Those are the best films. That's like a total David Lynch, style where you walk out, you're like, I think I know what I just saw. Yeah. Let me think about this.
Yes. And I got to say, like, he delivered a script that honestly, it started with another writer, and that writer delivered, but we stripped that completely back also. And now we're at a point where I really love the script. It is really going to be challenging to make, and it's going to be difficult, but I think at the end of the day, when you walk away from seeing this movie, it's a think piece. There's a lot of nasty kills in it, but it is definitely a think piece.
That's marvelous. And this is looking to start soon, or are you still like in pre-production?
We're actually in pitch right now because the script is done. I'm trying to get some investors involved. I still have that going on with Campfire as well, but we started pre-production a little early with that because we had some funds. We were able to get some things done. So
cool. Yeah. So, I mean, compare from your longevity here in the business and stuff. I mean, you've obviously, I know you said you do conventions, but with Lynn and stuff, and I'm known for going all over conventions. But I mean, how's that meeting the fans?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's funny because I've also seen guests at conventions that don't look like or act like they want to be there, But I don't understand that, because I actually really enjoy going out and doing these shows and talking to fans, because that's actually what inspired me to go out and do something about the industry and the way that it is now, and that people aren't caring as much about characters or whatever. I've had those candid conversations with fans over and over and over again, and I feel like there's a need.
There absolutely is, and I think that's great that you value what you do at conventions. I think I know exactly what you mean, because there's definitely some people that come to those conventions and they're not even making eye contact with someone who's handing them money. I don't care what mood you're in. I don't care if you don't want to be there, but let's just say on average, if someone's handing you $50 to get an 8x10, put a freaking fake smile on just for us.
For me, it's not even putting a fake smile on. I appreciate that. I appreciate that fans still want me at a place that I can sign something for them. And I had a hard time coming to grips with that people would pay for that. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
But if it weren't for the fans explaining that to me and saying, hey, you have value, we appreciate all of your work, and this is what we want to do to show you that appreciation. So for me, it's a big deal. I love doing it. I love talking to fans. I love having conversations with them. I love taking pictures with them. It's fun for me.
Yeah, and the fans truly is letting you know you're accepted or not. At those conventions, and the fact that your work speaks for itself. I know I didn't pre-warn you about my Nightmare on Elm Street, getting that free package in the mail and the T-shirt, but as soon as I found out you were attached to that, I'm like, I'm gonna bring that up, but dude, I appreciate all that, because that's a film. When you say horror films, that's in my top 5 or 6 easily right there that mattered, because I saw 4 before I saw 3, and I saw parts of the first one on TV way edited, but I never got a chance to get. So reality, my first Nightmare on Elm Street is 4, so I have an extra love for it, but you're a part of that, so thank you for that.
Right. Well, it's, for me, it's all about I mean, it wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really. I mean, I'm just a guy that I was lucky enough to work on it. I'm proud of the fact that I worked on it, but I don't have an attitude about it. I don't think that I deserve anything because really the fans are who decide that. The fan base is that calls the shots. It calls the shots on whether you make another movie. That's what it's all about.
Yes, absolutely. But the fans are also always, I always say it's like zombies going to the mall. They're constantly coming to those conventions because it's a way to say thank you first. And then from someone like me who's been going to them, first one I ever went to was Monster Mania in 2003. And then, I've been to everything now, but there's a community there.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a community. I just went to Texas Frightmares, and it's like, literally, it was funny. It was like, there's a whole bunch of people from my area down there. And then there's all the people I knew online that I'm meeting for the first time. And, before you know, it's like, there's another 80 people I know. It's like, there they are. It's like, there's a community waiting for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I always said, anybody who's trying to get into horror movies, if you're not going to horror movie conventions, that's half of your problem right there. it really is. Yeah. Because you got people like me who act and direct and, trying to, run podcasts and all that. Like I make my own movies, Dark Military and Pennsylvania Hardcore, but like, you got to be able to get to your right audience, and then a chain reacts, and then someone else's movie comes my way, and then before you know it, we're working together, and that's how.
Yeah, it's a network, it really is. It's a network. Like I'll use. Have you heard of Subsoil Films? There's a gentleman by the name Tim Milliken that has a company called Subsoil Films.
I do not, but tell me all about him. All about it.
This is a great example. Like Lisa Wilcox, who's a very, very dear friend of mine. We worked on Nightmare together, and she was in a film that Tim made last year that actually still hasn't been finished because Cleve Hall passed away in the middle of making it. So, that's still being made, but like Tim reached out to me about some of the films he's working on. And for me, it is networking. It's all about working with other people in this business, because Tim reached out to me about some of the films he's trying to get produced. And I'm like, look, I'll help any way I can. If we can push any of this stuff forward, I'll help, because to me, it's all about getting this content out there and have the fans decide whether they love it or hate it. It's not about, you never know. Like I said, even with Night of the Demons, I never thought it would last the test of time like it has. Not in a million years did I think that. And that just proves, people that want to do this, go out and do it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And there was a time, you know what I'm talking about, like when I was a youth, I had whatever was available at the video store. Okay. It was the trailers before that movie started to introduce you to other films. And it was when I would go to the grocery store with my parents, they knew where to find me. They dropped me off at the magazine section that I was either looking at wrestling magazines or I was looking at Fangora. Yep. But that was your only way, especially me. I grew up in a town of only 30,000. Like for me to find out where the next films were, or if by miracle, I could get into a video store. But maybe we're driving an hour away and they're going to be here for an hour. I'm like, Mom, Dad, there's a video store across the street. Like, I just want to go look at the boxes because that was
the thing. It's like box art was huge. If you saw really cool box art, you wanted to rent that movie.
But it really was. It's just like we are now when you're like going through your queue. Like we could go to Tubi now and be like there for walking at 2000, but you don't care, you don't appreciate. But when back then in our era, especially what I'm talking about, like I would just go to video. I know I can't rent nothing. My parents aren't going to drive me back, but like you're looking at for more horror movies you never heard of.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And you're looking at the back of the box. You're reading everything. You're looking at I remember that actor. Or remember this director. So it was one of those things when I first started going to conventions. Like wow, like. If the little boy could see me now, and now the fact that I act and I direct, like, wow. So even talking to you, dude, I mean, the whole whirlwind of what's been my career. And I just think anybody who's trying to get into this, you gotta go all in, and you gotta go to conventions. It really is truly the mecca to know what's going on.
It is. And it's going to give you the best insight to what fans want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I always said, I've said this over and over, if there was no connections to the horror movie business, particularly the Monster Mania convention, there would be no dark military movie that I made. There's without a doubt, no, because that's how I met. I met every piece I kind of needed, like something awe-spring from every person I met there. You know,
Right.
Yeah, and you get people's cards all the time. I mean, it's crazy when you're going to every one of them, and like you walk through, and you're like, I know 150 people here, easy. Yeah. Between agents and all that, and it's but you don't get that. It really is like I call them it's like how mini Hollywood on tour is all those conventions, because you sooner or later you're going to be able to get around, at least get around something. It doesn't mean you're always going to, I know Robert Englund's not a guy that actually goes to the bar after, but there are a lot of people that do.
I am.
yeah. But my boys in Terrifier and stuff, like we're just right out in the open and stuff. Kane Hodder's an easy guy. It's like he has his own seat at Monster Mania, so it's the way. I always tell people you got to get the conventions, and you don't go to the convention for 2 hours and leave. You got to stay for the all nighter when the real stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, but Nick, this has been quite fantastic. Is there anything you want to say to the audience, or any topic you want to jump into?
Well, since we're talking about conventions, let's talk about those. I'm still trying to get answers out of them. I'm supposed to be at Mad Monster Phoenix.
Okay.
So we'll see. Look for announcements on my Facebook or my Instagram for those. I will be at Houston Horror Film Festival.
I think everyone's going to be there but me, but go ahead.
So I'll be there. I've been announced at Phantasm Orlando, so I'll be there. And CreepyCon Knoxville. And then it's kind of far out, but Scarefest. I'll be at Scarefest too.
That's in Kentucky, is it?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I've been to that too. That's a good one. It's in Lexington, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good one. Sweet. So Nick.
So if you're out in that area, come and see me.
Absolutely. And Nick, feel free to plug any way to get a hold of you, any website.
Yeah, on Facebook, it's just Nick J. Benson Official after Facebook.com. And on Instagram at Nick Benson 427. Sweet.
Nick, thank you so much for coming on and giving me your time on Average Superstar TV. This was a fantastic interview. Oh, I have to send this one to my mom and be like, remember that Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But thank everyone who tuned in to watch this show. Thank you for supporting Average Superstar TV. Please give me that subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. New episodes every Monday morning at 5:30. And with that, I will say the party is